Welcome, Avani. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Ricky. I'm glad. Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely. So if it's all right with you, I'd love to jump into our first topic, which is discipline. Avani, when we met, I attended a student success seminar at Georgia Tech on raising GPAs and being successful at school. And here you spoke about maintaining a 4.0 GPA during your bachelor's degree. Could you tell us about that experience and what helped you? And I'd also love to know how you took care of yourself while achieving those grades at school.
Absolutely. And I think this is a question that requires, some backstory, some discussion, because, it starts off with discipline. So I think with the kind of lifestyle that I used to lead, some people might call it structure. I wouldn't call it structure or rigidity, but I would say that there was a certain flow to my day, which, kind of helped me break my work into little sections, help me focus on a certain thing, a certain time of the day. So in terms of the 4.0, I would say the most critical aspect of my success was that I attended all class lectures. And I know that, and I'm not trying to throw dirt on any student here, but I know that a lot of students when I was back at Tech complained that, hey, I don't really learn anything from that class. Like, I don't understand the professor. It's too early in the morning. It's too late in the evening. And I understand everybody has their own schedules. Everybody has their own body rhythm. But, for me, the important thing was get up in the morning, even if it is an 8 a.m., show up, try and pay attention. And I am a morning person, so I would get up really, really early in the morning, and 8 a.m.s were just fine for me. But, I was the sort of person who would get tired in the evening. But it didn't matter, even if it was a TA session at 6 p.m., I'd still go. I would be tired, but I'd go, I'd put in an effort. And I think if you walk into a class with the mindset that, hey, I'm not learning anything, you are not going to learn anything. So I think one of the most important things that I used to tell students, in the sessions that's like, the betterment session that you were talking about was show up to class, show up with an open attitude. And, there's so many different kinds of people, so many different kinds of professors. They're going to have different teaching methods, but make an effort to learn, try and get something out of it. So that is one thing that I really wanted to emphasize on. Other than that, just in terms of like examples, the kind of assignments that we were given, I always made an effort to do them on my own. And that's to say, there are a lot of resources available for you. Absolutely use those resources. But then you also know that, there's a line, you know that there are solutions available out there. Don't straight up copy those solutions, try as hard as you can on your own. Maybe look at an example solution to see how you could proceed with the problem on your homework. But don't just, I wouldn't recommend waiting for the last moment and then the night before just copying down a page of solutions. So I think the thing that I'm trying to emphasize here is I never did anything for the grades. And that's possible. And that's probably why I had a 4.0 is because this might sound cliched, but I never studied for the grades. I studied because I really actually wanted to learn the material. It interested me, it excited me. And not to say that it didn't intimidate me. There were times when I was like, I do not understand what's going on. But you put in the effort, and it's not always easy. You're not always going to have goosebumps. You're not always going to learn about, like an F-15 propulsion system. You're not always going to talk about how satellites operate in space. Sometimes it's going to be very trivial stuff like doing algebra or doing, I don't know, maths that you don't like, geometry. But it's like spending the time to understand what's actually happening does lead to a path of success. And don't do it for the grades. Don't do it just because you think there is, like a treat waiting for you at the end of the line. So that's something I think that really helped me. In terms of, taking care of myself, I guess is one, and I'm not going to say that it wasn't stressful, but I think the fact that I didn't ever do it for the grades took away some of my stress, in a sense, it took away some of the pressure, because what I told myself was I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to work as hard as I can. I'm going to try to understand this concept to the best of my ability. And then, what I do on the test is secondary. So I come back and, if I didn't do as well on a test, I'm not saying that it didn't hurt me. It did. It's like sometimes you think you did very well on a test and you turns out you didn't. And it does upset you. But at the end of the day, think that, okay, I didn't do so well. Maybe there's scope for learning, but don't let those grades, determine your capability. So that's, and it really helps take away the pressure. And I think that really helped. Other than that, in terms of just, simple lifestyle choices, I get up early in the morning, I go to bed early in the morning. I cannot emphasize this enough, but really, and everybody has their own schedule, but getting up early in the morning gives you, when it's quiet, when people aren't up and about, when it isn't noisy outside, it gives you space to think. It gives you space to relax and just get ready for the day. And I think it helps a lot. Another thing that I did religiously was I always had breakfast. And this might sound silly, but give your body fuel to run on. If you're just gulping down a cup of coffee and running, you're not giving your body the energy it needs. And people underestimate just how much energy you need to actually process things. You might not be moving around, you might not be running miles, but when you're sitting in class and trying to think through concepts, learn, it takes up a lot of your energy. And if you're not fueling your body, it's not going to have anything to run on. So you really need to feed it. So that's another thing. What else did I do? Sometimes, when my thoughts were too clogged up, I try and get up in the morning, meditate, as you were mentioning earlier, or, do yoga, because that's something that calms me down. And you don't have to meditate or do yoga, do whatever calms you down. So if going for a run makes you happy, going for a swim makes you happy, just going outside for a walk in the fresh air makes you happy, do it, take that time for yourself. So yeah, I think those are some of the main points that I would emphasize on. And I know that when you come to college, a large part of it is, hey, I want to party, I want to go out, do maybe drink, I don't know. So sure, you should be able to do all of that, but then also set bounds for yourself, because, all of those things are going to take up your energy. So discipline yourself in the sense that, hey, I'm going to do it once a week, after I get all my work done, after I get this done. Yeah, Friday night, I'm going to give myself some time, but then set boundaries for yourself. It's like, okay, I can drink this much. I'm going to stay out till this time. Know when to stop, know your limits. And those are different for every person out there, but know your limits and abide by them. So yeah, those are some of the points I wanted to bring out for this question.
That is so great. And what I was curious about is how this has evolved for you through your then master's and PhD degrees. Do you feel like you were able to keep with the same routines, or did they change drastically or not at all?
Okay, so I think that is one interesting question, because in undergrad, a lot of your schedule is prefixed because, you come in and the program is kind of set for you. So you take a lot of classes. And I also think undergrads tend to be way more involved in the campus. They have activities, they have sports, they have clubs, whatnot. So I think from my experience, undergrads tend to live a little bit more of a hectic life. And that's not to say that grad students are not busy or they don't have things to do. But I think the difference between, my bachelor's, master's, and PhD was that grad school gives you a lot more time for you to structure, which can be a good and bad thing. Because in undergrad, I'm not, it's like a lot of times your professors are literally running around you, asking you to finish your homework assignments. It's kind of like a little bit of a hand holding, spoon feeding, In grad school, you are responsible. I think you're responsible for your learning no matter what. But in grad school, you're way more responsible for your learning. Your professors, your classes will give you an introduction to a certain concept. They'll try and show you the way. They'll try and, shed light on the path. But at the end of the day, it's your responsibility to undertake that journey, to go out, get additional resources, sit, read, understand, talk to your professors, get help when you need to, talk to your peers. So grad school, I think you're learning, and it takes a different, it gets to a different level. It takes a different understanding to just find that schedule and work around it. And I think this is not just limited to academics. Grad school, again, it's like, you're either working on research or you're maybe a TA or a teaching assistant. You don't have as many classes, so you technically have a lot more free time in graduate school. That does not mean that you have time to just, idle around, but it's up to you how you want to manage that time, how you want to, I don't know. Again, delegate time for a walk or a run, or however you calm yourself down, and how you delegate time for doing research or studying or finishing homework assignments and taking on other life responsibilities. I've noticed a lot of times in grad school, you get there, people have families, people have side jobs, people have full-time jobs that they have to manage. So I think grad school requires a lot more undertaking, if that makes sense. It requires a lot more taking charge of your own time. You will have a lot more time than undergrad. And I think a part of that is because undergrad, a lot of things are structured for you already. So you're running around from one place to the other. Grad school, it's up to you to decide how much you run around. So I guess that's a little bit of a change. But other than that, your basic habits stay the same. The way you learn, the way you relax, the way you structure your life, how disciplined you are, how not disciplined you are, that all of that stays the same.
I love this response, and I wish I had heard it back when I was 17 and just starting out school. And I'm hoping that this does reach the 17-year-old who is curious about how to succeed and how to do right by themselves and the path that they want to chart. So all of this was so valuable. I'd love to talk about the second topic you offered, which was tenacity. And you've had these incredible experiences of working in France, studying in the US, and now working here too. Can you share with us how you were able to seek opportunities across continents?
Absolutely. And I think the first thing that I want to start off here with is, as you would be well aware, and this particular field I am in, aerospace, is severely restricted to foreign nationals, internationals, and yeah, it's a field that requires nationals of their own country, the USA, to get specific clearances. So for somebody who's a foreign person, companies are very, very skeptical of hiring international people. So I think for sure creating opportunities for yourself in such a scenario is difficult, and you have to realize that that's the first step you have to come to terms with, is that it's difficult, it's not easy. And going from there, I think what particularly helped me was that I didn't ever refuse anything, even if it was a small step. If it wasn't an internship or a full-time job, but it was a research opportunity at this great lab for the summer, I take it. It gives you exposure, it gives you an experience, it helps you talk to your peers, it helps you talk to your professors, it helps your professors to get to learn and know you, and in the process, again, you're learning a lot. So I'm going to reemphasize, do things because it makes you happy and it makes you want to learn, not because it's going to lead you to an internship or a job or a position down the line. So I think most, like the opportunity that you mentioned, France, when I went to work for Safran in France, or the fact that I also had attended this Airbus program for a week in the Netherlands. I think all of those came because my professors knew who I was as a student, how much effort I put in, and they were able to recommend me to some of these opportunities, for which I applied and then was finally selected. So again, and I never went to those professors with the hope that they'd be able to, point, like they'd be able to give me opportunities down the line. But it was just that I was curious to learn from them. They're all stalwarts in their field. So it was a great opportunity for me to just go do research with them and learn from them. In the process, they learned that I was a hardworking student, I had capability, and they were able to help me out as much as they could. And knowing that they also are restricted, right? They can't offer you all the opportunities in the world. So that's one thing I would say, is don't say no to opportunities because you think they're too small for you. Nothing is too small, especially if it's an opportunity to learn. So that's one way I would say I was able to create opportunities for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is such great advice. And what I'm really curious about is, throughout these experiences, what you learned about culturally and what made you then finally choose one continent over the other, and what advice you would give to students and professionals looking to forge a path similar to yours. Because oftentimes when folks come from different parts of the world and then other parts of the world are opening up to them, there's often a choice of where to pursue either that first degree or that second or the third, or to take that first job, or to even move to a different continent from the one in which they did schooling in. So how
Absolutely.
did you go about navigating where to start this first role, given your experiences across Asia, Europe, and the Americas?
Sure. So I think I'm going to start off with your first question. You said, what did I learn about different cultures? How were they, different across different continents? I think one thing that I'm going to emphasize is that, in essence, humans are the same everywhere across the world. Yes, on the surface, cultures are drastically different, and then, yes, there'll be certain parts that you haven't encountered before. But I think, basic values, basic human values, basic human behaviors stay the same. You encounter some people that are very nice and accommodating. You'll encounter some people that are maybe a little removed and not so nice to you, not so polite to you. So I think no matter where you go, you're gonna find the same underlying behavior. But overall, yes, it depends on the kind of experiences you have in different places, and everybody has a certain vibe and a certain environment that they flourish in. So if a certain continent, if a certain country works better for you and you have an opportunity there, sure, you should pursue it. What else did I want to talk about here? So in terms of how I selected different continents, going to be blatantly honest here, as an international, I didn't have a lot of choice to select continents. It was like whatever job opportunities came my way, again, I took them, whether they were in France or if they were in the United States, or if they had been in, I don't know, India or Japan or China, wherever, opportunities would come my way, I'd accept them, keeping in mind, of course, that it's like things you can actually undertake at that point in life, also keeping in mind your safety and affordability and things like that. So that's one thing. What was the last question that you were getting to me at? Could you repeat?
Yes, it was, what advice would you give to students and professionals looking to forge a path that is similar to yours?
Okay. The first thing that I'm going to say is, you talked about how I have a 4.0. I have, I had all this research experiences, and I don't know, to a third person, it might look like I had everything academically, to be successful. There was no way that I didn't have dark times, or, there was no way that I would have a lack of opportunities. I'm going to be blatantly honest. I've had some very dark times. I've been, straight up refused internships almost all of my undergrad. And I think a part of that obviously was because I was international. So I would walk up to companies, they'd look at my resume, and I've literally had a recruiter tell me, hey, I would have hired you, but there's nothing I can do. My hands are tied. You're international. I literally had a recruiter tell me that. So it is tough, and it's tough for them too. It's not something that they can change, and it's not something you should resent. It's just how the world works. That's just what it is. So the first thing that I'm going to say is, don't let external validation shape how you perceive yourself. Because if you think that an internship or an award or a paper is going to define your self-worth, you are wrong. You're in for a very hard time. And I can say this because that is what I did a lot of times. And it's easy to get swayed, and it's very difficult to stop yourself from feeling upset when you see your peers are doing so well. You're happy for them, but still you see that they're doing so well. They have all these opportunities, they have all these jobs, they have all these positions, and somehow you're just sitting around. You feel like you're sitting around doing nothing. And that can hurt, that can feel very bad. You start to, judge yourself. You start to question if you really are worth it. So the one thing I want to emphasize is, don't let the world determine your worth. Don't let one career or goal determine your life. If for some reason, and I know I say this under tenacity, I've always wanted to be an aerospace engineer, and I stuck with it. There were times when people told me that, hey, it might be better for you to switch fields. I don't know, go into mechanical, go into computer. But I said, sure, I could do that, but it's not something that's going to bring me happiness. I am not doing aerospace because I want to prove to somebody that I'm a rocket scientist or something. I'm just doing it because it makes me happy. And it really is one of the only things that drives me is aerospace. The concepts that I learn under that field is what makes me happy. So do what makes you happy, but don't let it define your self-worth, And I learned this as I was going through this process. There were times when I was like, okay, what if I don't find a job in aerospace at the end of the world? I have other hobbies, I really enjoy photography. Maybe I could turn that into a profession, evolve using that instead. It's also a hobby that I enjoy. I used to dance when I was younger, and I am guilty of not putting in as much effort into it when I grew up, but maybe that was something, I could have pursued. So one goal doesn't, life is full of opportunities. If you see a shut door, I know it's heartbreaking, it's devastating, but that's not the end of the world. There are other opportunities. And trust me, at the end of the day, the only goal you should have is happiness. And you can find that a lot of different ways. So that's one point. Don't let one goal, or don't let the world's perception of you determine your self-worth. And I think once you have that, once you kind of free yourself of that, of those impositions, once you break free from that cage, you'll find that a lot of opportunities present themselves to you.
Absolutely. And I think that time might do a lot of work on helping people break free of that cage. And
absolutely,
to anyone listening, if they feel very much stuck in that cage and very unable to get out of it, I hope that even the message or the reminder is this catalyst for them to start thinking of how to break out of it for themselves.
Absolutely.
Because there's so many circumstances that can keep us there, but to hear this out loud, for it to be a reminder, for them to maybe write it out, whatever it takes, hopefully it can start a snowball effect of them breaking out. Because I recall me speaking to you very much stuck in that cage, and how long it took me, so much longer than I thought it would. It wasn't fix in a day or a week or even months. It took a few years for
absolutely
me to really learn that message. And I continue to really learn that message because it comes up in all the new walks of life we're in and all the new contexts. And so what you've shared is so key and important, really, as we're progressing through all of these different big milestones in our life.
Absolutely.
So I hope that folks listening really keep this one close to their hearts.
I hope so too. And honestly, Vicky, there isn't an end to it. As you grow, you create new cages for yourself. When you're younger, you think accomplishing a certain goal that you've set for yourself will set you free. The fact is, it wouldn't. Humans are greedy, I guess, by nature. And that doesn't mean material greediness. As you age, as you grow, you set new goals for yourself, you set new aspirations for yourself. It never ends, it never ends. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be ambitious. I'm not saying you shouldn't plan for the future. Of course, there's something you need to look forward to, but you need to account for the fact that life isn't predictable. It might throw things at you that you didn't account for, and you cannot account for. You're a very small, like tiny part of this world. There are things you will not be able to account for or foresee. And I think having the flexibility to be able to accept what comes your way it's a huge blessing. Just having that flexibility to be able to digest what comes your way. It's like you still have the same goal, but the path you might have decided for it may not be the one you end up taking. There's other paths, maybe some more arduous, some requiring more work, but some requiring more time. But at the end of the day, yeah, you will get to your goal, but it might not be at the time, at the pace, and using the path you envisioned you would take. So it's like, and it's so easy to get depressed and disappointed. And even now, I have like one wonderful job, and even now sometimes I find myself wondering, am I doing enough? Am I worthy enough? So it's not something you be able to shed off completely, but it's just continuously reminding yourself that it's okay, you're doing fine, you're learning, you're continuing to grow, and it's okay if everything doesn't go your way. It's fine. It's fine. Take it one step at a time, you know?
Absolutely. And I think you have really mentioned the next topic that I'd love to transition into, adaptability,
Mm-hmm.
so well. And that was such a great transition. But before we move on, I'd love for um, just the folks who are here listening from countries outside of the United States that we reside in to learn
Mm-hmm.
more about how you were able to break through those cages that are just the job restrictions, helping you land the current job that you have now. What
Sure.
finally clicked, and what do you feel like were those key moments where one thing led to another and helped you sit where you are today?
Sure. So I think one of the parts, I think something that I want to mention for that is that honestly, it was a very last minute opportunity that came my way. It came, I think, 3 months before I was scheduled to finish my PhD and graduate. So I didn't have a job. Well, I had a postdoc, so I could have gone ahead with the postdoc, but I didn't have like a job in the industry. I really was like, I don't know what's going to happen after my PhD, and it worried me. And I was applying to, all sorts of jobs that my experience would be applicable for you on LinkedIn, applying via different companies, websites, things like that. And this opportunity just came my way, and the position that I work for right now is actually for an industrial gas company. So it's not necessarily an aerospace restricted field, but what do I work on? I work on designing industrial compressors and turbines, so I work on in the turbomachinery department, and these compressors and turbines are actually used in air separation processes. So the kind of work I do is very much aerodynamics, which is my strong suit. So it's designing for, the different pressure ratios you're encountering, the different kind of conditions you're seeing. And then, so it's in essence, it's what I love doing. It is exactly what I do. I am an aerodynamicist and I am working on aerodynamics. But the end goal is, okay, these compressors, there are compressors that go on the jet engines that are on your airplanes. But these compressors are not going on jet engines. They're going in a plant that's helping separate air into oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, which are down the line used for almost every industrial process you can think of. They're used in hospitals. Our recent experiences with COVID will tell you how much you need oxygen. They're used to manufacture electronic chips. They're used in the steel making industry. So I would say an important part is, yes, if you're true to what you love doing. For me, it was aerospace, for like, aeronautics or aerodynamics or combustion or modeling, things like that. It's like, yes, you stay true to what you want to do, but maybe expand the scope of where you can use it. So don't be like, I want to work for this one plane company in this one city, and if I don't get it there, my life is ruined. It's not, take a different path. Again, it curls around. It's not a straight path. It's you might, one opportunity would take you another way. It might turn out you like that better than what you envisioned you'd first end up doing. So that's one thing. Another, specifically in terms of international students, I'd say you'd have to put in way more effort into looking for opportunities, and then again, maybe not even restrict yourself to a specific continent. So even though a lot of the jobs I applied for were for the USA, I did look at jobs in Europe, I did look at jobs in India, I did look at jobs in Asia. So it's like, and again, if your goal is to go to Europe, sure, a majority of your application should be for companies in Europe, but then keep in mind that there might be opportunities in Canada or the US or, your home country, whatever that may be. So just be willing to look for other options. And I'm not saying that you should just kind of give up on what you want to do. No, emphasize, a majority of your energy should be emphasized to what you think you want to do, where you want to go, but then also have other opportunities in the back that you can rely on, or maybe just explore. And who knows, you might end up liking those better than what you wanted to do in the first place. So
Absolutely. And that is exactly adaptability, and everything that you described feeds so well into our third topic. And my last question for you is, what was the vision that you had for yourself when you first started, and how has that expanded and changed? And you touched on this with just your previous answer, but I'd love to know about it in the context of the Avani who is, starting out in grade school, or the one who had just started their bachelor's degree, or even the PhD. How do you feel like this vision has expanded and adapted, as you said?
Sure. So I think when I was very young, I remember it was 2003 when Columbia crashed, I believe. And Kalpana Chawla was one of the astronauts that unfortunately passed away in that incident. And she was an Indian origin woman, and I remember, this is going to sound silly, but she had really long, dark, hair. And I remember I was like, oh, I had long hair, at that point I was young. I was like, I want to be like that woman, I want to be an astronaut or an aerospace engineer or whatever. And I think I kept that goal throughout. So ever since I was a little girl, I wanted to do aerospace. It's stuck with me. But what exactly I wanted to do, how I thought I'd achieve my dreams has changed along the way, So it's like, when I started off as an undergraduate student, I didn't even think I would get a PhD. When I started off in 2013, I thought, okay, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to try and find a job. I'll go and work for a big airline company, a big airliner, ones that produce all these big commercial jets, maybe, So, and that didn't happen. It changed along the way. I found out that, okay, finding jobs for internationals is kind of hard and very, very difficult with just a bachelor's degree for sure. So I said, and then I got into research. I realized, okay, research, finding the answer to something that really hasn't been explored, it's kind of interesting. So I went into research and I thought, okay, maybe this is a good pathway into grad school. And then going into grad school, other than the fact that you get to learn more, you're getting more time to maybe contemplate your options. You're getting more, you're getting yourself to a point where you're a little bit more skilled, even though it does restrict your options, but you're a little bit more skilled to to go to that platform and say, hey, I can specifically do this for you when you go to a company. So it's like one thing led to another, and I ended up doing a PhD because the topic that I got into, which was ice accretion, was really interesting. And I had one great advisor. So another thing I would say is that sometimes you meet people who are willing to help you, who are willing to, guide you on your path. And I had Dr. Sankar as my advisor, and he's been the greatest influence, one of the greatest influences in my life. He was just so supportive, so humble. So I was able to learn a lot from him. So it's like you take whatever opportunities come your way. How else have my goals changed? I think some of these answers might touch back to what I've already said, but when I was younger, I really let external accolades or external accomplishments bring me up or bring me down. So, and in terms of social media, I think, social media is a great tool for like helping people connect, but it can also be quite a trigger for, depression and sadness and feelings of inadequacy, because you see all these people doing all these great things, going to all these great places, and then you think, again, you start judging your capabilities. And there were times when I judged my capabilities irrespective of whether I was an international or not. There were times when I was like, am I not getting jobs because I'm international, or am I not getting jobs because I am not worth it? Maybe that's just the answer it is. But that's the important point, is to not let worldly perception influence how you think of yourself. You really, whatever you have to do, whether it's talking to somebody else, reaching to somebody who's been in the same position as you. So, that'd be me, that'd be you, so it's like talking to people who've already been there. Or if you don't have somebody to talk to, just having faith in whatever that is. If you believe in God, have faith in God. If you believe in your abilities, have faith in your abilities. If you believe in action, have faith in action. Whatever it is that drives you, it's time to, take a step back and reinforce that faith, whatever it is that drives you on. Sometimes you just have to take a breather and tell yourself that no, I am worthy, and I am going to keep working. So, and that honestly will lead to maybe different goals, different paths for yourself, and keep other things open. If there was a hobby that you really enjoy, don't give up on it. I did that at some point. I was like, oh, I need to study, so I'm gonna get rid of, or I don't have time to do other things that I love to do. Don't do that. Don't compromise on other aspects of your personality or life just because you are so focused on one. So, because down the line, you never know, they might open up doors for you that, maybe that might help you get somewhere. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And this brings me to my last set of questions, and I'd love to jump into them. My first one being, what does wellness mean to you?
I think wellness to me just equates to happiness, whatever way you get to. It's like, I feel like people strive so much to obtain to work towards a career, to have a certain accomplishment in terms of education, or like have a house, have a car. But I think at the end of the day, what we're all striving for is happiness, and we make these tools a way to get to happiness. So we think that these are the tools that we absolutely need. No, you don't need these harbingers. You just need happiness, and you can do whatever. I think it's like taking a step back and looking at what makes you happy, not exactly thinking that a certain job or a certain material possession is going to make you happy. So pursue happiness, I think. And it's difficult in today's world, which is so competitive, but still, I think the most important thing for me is happiness.
Absolutely. And you had mentioned this in our first topic, and I've been itching to ask you, but I'd love to know more about your morning and night routines and
Sure.
what helps you bounce back when you feel like you've fallen off track.
Okay, absolutely. So as I mentioned, I am a morning person. So I get up relatively early in the morning. I get up close to 5. Sometimes in college, I used to get up earlier, and now sometimes I get up a little bit later, but around 5. And then I just kind of take time to brush my teeth, get myself oriented. Then I like doing yoga. So I do yoga in the morning or meditation, and it just kind of helps me start off the day on the right footing, because I stretch out, and, I'm really like kind of like meditating. So I'm able to, and it's quiet outside. So I'm able to, really get myself prepped for the day. And then it's the usual. I never miss breakfast. That's one thing I say. I mean, I think, again, everybody has a different way of doing things. I may miss lunch sometimes, I may miss dinner, but I do not miss my breakfast. I really look forward to my breakfast. You wouldn't believe it. I go to sleep happy that I'll be able to get up and have breakfast tomorrow morning. So that's one thing. And then during the night, I try to go to bed early. But again, if you work better late at night, you don't have to. But I get tired, come 6, I'm like, my mental capacity just dips. I just want to go to sleep. So I don't go to sleep at 6, but by 9, 10, I try and wrap things up, go to bed. I try to avoid looking at a laptop or computer, which is harder said than done, but I try to avoid spending too much time on them right before I go to sleep, because it affects the quality of your sleep, because you're stressing your eyes out. So just lay in bed and kind of like try to calm yourself down before you go to sleep. Don't be too agitated. Don't be thinking about all the things you did today or the things you need to do tomorrow. What you did today is past. It's already done. What you need to do tomorrow is going to come tomorrow, and you can't change what you have to accomplish or what you have to get done. So at that point, just live in the moment, take a deep breathe, and just relax your body. Your body really needs that rest. So don't compromise on sleep. That's another thing. I think I didn't mention it when I was talking about discipline, but another thing that I've never done is compromise on my sleep. Okay, once or twice, yeah, you have to, sometimes you have to pull an all-nighter because there's something that requires your attention, something that needs to get done, sure, but don't make a habit of it. You really need to, your body is the only thing that's supporting you through this life. That's the only thing that you're going to have throughout your life. Be kind to it. So yeah,
absolutely. And in terms of everything that we've spoken about, I was wondering if there was anything that you felt was still lingering, something else that you'd still like to share on anything or everything that we've spoken about.
I think I got most of it out. I really the one point that I would like to emphasize is because I've been through, those episodes myself where I've self-questioned my worth, and I've been through, some really depressing and dark times. I just want to say that if somebody is going through a dark time where you don't see a way out, or you really are questioning your abilities, or you feel like you're not worth it, I want to tell you that you are. You just have to keep working. You have to be self-reliant, yes. And you have to just find a way to live through that dark time. And if at all somebody needs help, want to reach out to me, I may not know them personally, obviously, because once your podcast goes out, I don't know who's listening to it, but you might be a complete stranger. But if it's anything that you want to reach out to and talk to me about, I'm here. You can email me. So I don't know, am I allowed to give out my email address?
Yes, if you'd like. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sure. So it's my first name, Avani, which is A-V for Victor, A-N, and for nice, I-2514 @gmail.com. So feel free to reach out to me, and obviously the most I can do is, kind of counsel you and like just be there for you, support you through it. But I think sometimes when you're going through a dark time, it takes a lot. It means a lot when somebody else tells you that you're just fine, as opposed to you telling yourself that you're just fine. And if I can be that person, I'd be happy to.
Thank you so much, Avani. And
Of
I had
course.
such a great time talking to you. I'm so grateful for everything that you shared, your honesty, and the survival guide that you've created for others who are paving their paths through their bachelor's, master's, and PhDs in the aerospace industry. So thank you so, so much for your time.
Of course, I'm glad I was able to do this, and I want to thank you, Ricky, for taking the initiative to, compile these podcasts and then, get them out to people and be a helpful resource to them. I think it's a great undertaking, and I'm sure it takes up a lot of your time and effort.
Thank you so much.
You're doing it beautifully. You're doing it admirably. So
thank you.
Okay. Yeah.